Chosen one, stop what you are doing right now. That restlessness pulling at you in this moment. Do not dismiss it. God has been trying to get 2 minutes of your attention, and today he stopped waiting for a convenient time. He arranged this. The sign you asked for has arrived. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. And the enemy is working overtime to make you scroll past it, minimize it, explain it away, or convince you that you imagined the whole thing. That is why you need to anchor yourself to the next few minutes like your destiny depends on it. Because it does. Think back to that moment this week when you whispered that prayer in private. Maybe it was under your breath in a hallway. Or maybe it was a thought you barely finished before you talked yourself out of it. Maybe you were standing in front of the mirror at 3 o'clock in the morning, too exhausted to cry, asking God if he still sees you. Or maybe it was yesterday and you were not even sure you believed the words as you said them. You just needed to release them into the air. You did not know it then. But that moment was a legal transaction in the spirit realm. That fragile, half-believing, barely formed prayer. Heaven received it as a fully filed petition. And the verdict came back before you woke up this morning. Think back to this past week. That moment when you held your tongue instead of defending yourself. That moment when you chose not to retaliate, not to expose, not to escalate, even though you had every right to. You walked away. You went quiet. You let them think they had won. You thought that was your weakness. The enemy has been looping that moment in your mind on repeat, narrating it as your failure, your passivity, your missed opportunity. But I need you to understand what actually happened in that moment. You signed the assignment's termination papers. You did not find this recording by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. The Holy Spirit did. This is a divine appointment that was scheduled before the foundations of the earth. You are not a casual viewer stumbling through a feed. You are a chosen one, standing at a threshold, and the door behind you is closing while the door in front of you is opening. Stay until the very last second of this message. In the next few minutes, I am going to hand you the divine decree that heaven released over your life in response to the prayers you thought were going unanswered. I am going to walk you through the exact moment this week when you unknowingly activated the breakthrough that is now in motion. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that seals this season shut and cancels every assignment the enemy filed against your next chapter. Do not leave before the end. Your future self is standing on the other side of the next few minutes begging you not to click away. Because if you leave now, you may accidentally reopen the very door that God just sealed on your behalf. My name is Zerakiel. I write and teach about the things the spiritual world does not want you to understand. The attacks, the activations, the divine setups that are disguised as destruction. Over 10,000 people have used what I share here to break free from cycles they believed were permanent. If you are new here, subscribe and turn on all notifications right now. The enemy does not want you to hear what comes next on this channel. Make sure you do. Now, the enemy has been watching the last 72 hours very carefully, and in this window of stillness between the life you were living and the life you were promised, he has started whispering a very specific lie into the quiet spaces of your mind. He is not shouting. He does not need to. He has learned to sound like your own voice. Listen to what has been cycling through your thoughts. He is telling you that the reason the sign has not materialized in the way you expected is because of something you did. He is reminding you of the moment you lost patience, the moment you doubted, the moment you told someone about a promise that was supposed to stay between you and God. He is using those moments as evidence in a case he is building against you, a case that argues you have disqualified yourself, that the delay is your fault, that God is making you wait because you have not earned what he promised. That is the lie, and it has a name. The accuser filed that narrative against you in the same court where your petition was answered. But the verdict did not go in his favor. Here is what the word actually says about this moment. Nahum 1 verse 9 declares, "What do you conspire against the Lord? He will make an utter end of it. Affliction shall not rise up the second time." Hear that. Sit with every word of it. Affliction shall not rise up the second time. The enemy wants you to believe you are on another lap. He wants you to interpret this stillness as a reset. to read the heaviness in the atmosphere as God starting the clock over because of your failures. But that is not what this is. You are not in a cycle. You are in a conclusion. The weight you have been carrying this week is not the weight of punishment. It is the weight of finality. It is the particular kind of pressure that exists in the final moments before a shift. The tension of a cord stretched to its absolute limit right before it breaks. God did not send you this message to condemn you for the moments you think were failures. He sent it to reframe what those moments actually were. That silence was a weapon. That restraint was a strategy. That prayer you barely believed. It moved something. The sign has not come to you because you earned it perfectly. The sign has come because God set a time, and the time is now, and He will not wait for you to feel worthy before He keeps His word. You are not starting over. You are finishing. What do you conspire against the Lord? He will make an utter end of it. Affliction shall not rise up the second time. That verse was not written for a distant generation. It was written for this moment. For you. For the specific assignment that has been following you, reshaping itself every time you thought you had finally escaped it, wearing a new face every time you thought you recognized it. God saw it all before the foundations were laid. And He already issued the verdict. Some messages don't just inform, they activate. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, you may be ready to receive the chosen one's mantle. This sacred guide reveals the 12 divine codes behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. The codes that turn the life heaven already wrote over you into the life you actually walk. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. Now stay with me, because what I am about to walk you through is not a motivational framework. It is not a spiritual checklist. It is a revelation that is going to require you to reinterpret every hard thing that has happened to you in this season. Not as evidence that you are behind, but as evidence that you are being finished. The first thing you need to understand is that you have been living inside a misidentified season. You looked at the silence and called it abandonment. You looked at the stillness and called it stagnation. You looked at the closed doors and assumed God had changed His mind about you. But silence is not absence. Stillness is not stagnation. And a closed door is not a cancelled destiny. It is a redirected one. Elijah sat under the juniper tree and asked God to take his life. He was not backslidden. He was not disqualified. He was exhausted. And what did God do? He did not lecture him. He did not rehearse his failures. He let him sleep. Then He sent an angel to touch him and said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." What you have been calling your lowest point is actually God's way of saying the journey ahead requires a strength you have not yet received. You needed the rest. You needed the silence. You needed the stillness, not as punishment, but as preparation for a distance you could not have traveled without it. But here is where it goes deeper. It was not just about rest. It was about repositioning. Because the next thing God told Elijah was not go back the way you came. He told him to stand on the mountain. He gave him new coordinates. And the people who are going to misunderstand this season of your life the most are the ones who are still waiting for you to go back the way you came. Back to the version of you they were comfortable with. Back to the role you played in their story. Back to the smallness they mistook for your ceiling. They are waiting for a return that heaven never authorized. And you have been quietly grieving their disappointment, carrying guilt for an evolution that God Himself designed. What most people don't realize is that the grief of outgrowing people is one of the most spiritually disorienting experiences a chosen one faces. Because it does not feel like growth. It feels like loss. It feels like betrayal. It feels like something is wrong with you, because the rooms that used to fit you suddenly feel suffocating. But nothing is wrong with you. You are not proud. You are not ungrateful. You are simply no longer the size you used to be. And new wine cannot be contained in old wineskins. Not because the old wineskin is bad, but because the pressure of what God is putting inside you would destroy both of you if you try to stay. And this leads to something most people miss entirely. The separation was not the punishment. The separation was the promotion. When Joseph was stripped of his coat and thrown into the pit by his brothers, The text does not say he cried out to God. The text does not give us his prayer in the pit. What it gives us is silence. And that silence is significant, because God was not absent in that pit. He was present in a way that words could not contain. The pit was not the end of Joseph's story. It was the end of the version of Joseph that his brothers thought they were burying. The man who climbed out of that pit was not the same man who went in. And the people who put him there could not have known they were doing exactly what was required to position him for the palace. Stay with me, because what is coming next is the part that breaks the cycle. Here is what no one tells you about the process. The very things you have been apologizing for are the things God planted in you before you were born. The intensity that makes people uncomfortable, that is anointing without dilution. The way you see things others cannot see, that is prophetic sight that has not yet found its full expression. The fact that you do not fit neatly into the boxes people build for you, that is not a flaw in your design. That is the design working exactly as intended. The enemy has spent years convincing you that the most dangerous parts of your calling are character defects that need to be managed, suppressed, or apologized for. He did that because he knows what is released when you stop apologizing for the fullness of what God put inside you. You have been trimming yourself down to make other people comfortable in a room that was never meant to hold you permanently. But here is the real turning point. It is not just what the enemy has been doing externally. It is what he has trained you to do internally. Because the most effective weapon he ever deployed against you was not a person, not a circumstance, not a setback. It was a conclusion. He got you to conclude, very early, before you had enough information to judge accurately, that you were the problem. He handed you the evidence selectively. He showed you the moments you failed and hid the context. He showed you the rejection and edited out the part where God was protecting you from what would have destroyed you if it had stayed. He built a case, piece by piece, using real memories, real pain, real people. And he got you to agree with the verdict before you ever heard from the only judge whose opinion matters. And just when you think you have got it, there is one more layer. Because that agreement, that deep, quiet agreement that something about you is fundamentally broken, that agreement became a filter. And every experience you had after that got poured through it. Every delay confirmed it. Every loss reinforced it. Every relationship that ended too soon became more evidence for a case that should have been thrown out the moment it was filed. The agreement did not just hurt you. It became the lens through which you interpreted everything God was trying to say to you. He was saying chosen, and you were hearing cursed. He was saying set apart, and you were hearing rejected. He was saying, I am building something in you that requires this fire. And you were hearing, I have forgotten about you. That is the cycle. And the only thing that breaks it is not more evidence, not another sign, not a louder voice from heaven. It is a decision, a violent, deliberate, irrevocable decision to break agreement with the conclusion the enemy wrote about you, and to accept the one heaven has already issued in its place. This brings us to the real confrontation, the one most people avoid because it is the most uncomfortable truth in this entire message. The reason the breakthrough has felt delayed is not because God is withholding it. It is not because the enemy is stronger than God's promise over your life. It is because a part of you has been standing in the doorway. Not intentionally, not out of rebellion, but out of a deeply conditioned fear of what happens after the breakthrough. Because you have been waiting so long that the waiting has become your identity. The longing has become familiar. The almost has become safe. And the actual arrival, the moment the promise materializes, terrifies a part of you that you have not fully acknowledged yet. Because it means you can no longer define yourself by what you are waiting for. It means you have to become the person who walks in it. And that person is unfamiliar. That person is larger than the story you have been telling about yourself. That person does not fit inside the apology you have been living. And here is the part you probably did not expect. The final barrier between you and the life God already wrote over your name is not the enemy. It is not your past. It is not the people who hurt you, or the doors that closed, or the prayers that seemed to go unanswered. The final barrier is your willingness to receive without earning it. Because everything in your journey has trained you to fight for everything, to prove yourself at every level, to justify your existence in every room. And grace, real grace. The kind that says the breakthrough is yours not because you earned it, but because God decided it. Grace like that feels suspicious to someone who has been performing for survival their entire life. But this is the shift. This is the door. Grace is not the absence of process. Grace is the guarantee that the process was enough, even when it did not feel like it. Especially when it did not feel like it. The verdict came back before you woke up this morning. And the verdict reads, finished. Not abandoned, not disqualified, not delayed indefinitely. Finished. As in, the preparation is complete. As in, the season that felt like it would never end has reached its appointed conclusion. As in, the door that is opening in front of you right now was set to open at this exact moment, and nothing you did or failed to do changed that timing. Because God does not build his purposes on your performance. He builds them on his word. And his word does not return to him void. Place your hand on your heart right now and declare this with me. I break every agreement I made with the lie that I am too broken, too late, or too flawed to receive what God promised me. I release every apology I have been living. I release every performance, every striving, every attempt to earn what has already been given. I declare that this season is not a punishment, it is a completion. I declare that the silence was not abandonment, it was preparation. I declare that I am not starting over, I am finishing. I receive the breakthrough that heaven already released in response to every prayer I barely believed as I prayed it. I step across this threshold as the version of myself that God designed before the foundations of the earth. Not the version shaped by rejection, not the version reduced by fear, not the version defined by waiting. I step forward as the chosen one I was always called to be. This is my moment. This is my season. And I will not scroll past my own destiny ever again. If this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, share it with someone who is standing at the same threshold. Leave a comment with the word finished, because the enemy needs to hear that you received this. Subscribe and turn on every notification, because what comes next on this channel is specifically designed for the season you are walking into right now. The enemy does not want you here. Make sure you stay.